Ambassador Elena Vasquez had been sitting in the same chair for 6 hours. The negotiation room on Galactic Council Station Harmony 7 was designed to accommodate 12 different species, which meant the temperature was slightly too cold for humans. The air had a faint metallic taste, and the chairs were not quite the right shape. Elena had stopped noticing these discomforts months ago. Across the translucent table sat Ambassador Krelthor of the Zrati Collective. He was a large being, nearly 8 feet tall even while seated, with thick gray skin that resembled stone and 4 arms that he used for constant, dramatic gestures. For the past 6 months, the Zrati had been pushing human colony borders, sending mining vessels into clearly marked human territory, and claiming it was all unfortunate mistakes in their navigation systems. Elena knew better. Everyone in this room knew better. The mineral rights to the Kepler 442 system are clearly established, Elena said for what felt like the 100th time. Her voice remained calm and professional. The Terrestrial Survey Corps registered those claims 40 years ago. Your vessels are in violation of the Harmony Accords. Krelthor made a sound like grinding rocks, his species' version of laughter. Your kind hides behind papers and old agreements. The strong take what they need. Perhaps humans are simply too soft to hold what they claim. 2 of his aides made similar grinding sounds. Elena noticed the other species representatives at the table, the insectoid Cathar and the floating Lumini, exchange quick glances with each other. There was something in those glances, but Elena was too focused on the negotiation to analyze it. We prefer diplomacy to conflict, Elena replied. That's not softness. That's civilization. Civilization, Krelthor repeated, his translator giving the word a mocking tone. Yes, humans are very civilized. You talk and talk and talk. You file complaints. You hold meetings. He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. You do everything except act. Elena felt a small pulse of irritation in her chest but kept her expression neutral. She had been a diplomat for 23 years. She had negotiated with hostile governments, mediated civil wars, and once spent 14 hours in a bunker while missiles fell outside. She knew how to control her reactions. We act when action is necessary, she said. So far, we've been attempting to resolve this peacefully. So far, Krelthor said, and that grinding laugh came again. How much patience do humans have, I wonder? One of his aides reached across the table, supposedly to retrieve a datapad. As he did so, his arm swept across the table surface and a container of Zrati ceremonial drink tipped over. The thick blue-green liquid spilled directly onto Elena's data folder and the small wooden box she kept beside it. Elena's hands moved quickly, grabbing the box before the liquid could completely soak it. But it was too late. The liquid was already eating into the wood, leaving dark stains. The box had belonged to her grandmother, who had been a diplomat before her. It had survived 3 wars on Earth and had traveled to 17 different star systems. Oh, Krelthor's aide said, his translator conveying absolutely no sincerity. My apologies. How clumsy. Elena stared at the damaged box. She very carefully set it down on a dry part of the table. She looked at the spreading blue-green stain, at the pitted marks in the wood where the liquid's mild acidity was doing its work. She thought about 6 months of these negotiations, 6 months of border violations, 6 months of mockery and dismissals and deliberate provocations. She set down her stylus with precise care. She aligned it parallel to the edge of the table. She took a slow, deep breath through her nose and let it out through her mouth. Now I'm actually getting annoyed, Elena said quietly. The reaction was immediate and completely unexpected. Cathar, her assistant who had been sitting quietly beside her for the entire negotiation, went rigid. His multiple legs scraped against the floor as he pushed his chair back. The Lumini representative, who had been floating peacefully near the ceiling, dropped 2 feet in altitude and began moving rapidly toward the door. Krelthor's expression changed. The mockery vanished from his face. His 4 arms, which had been casually draped, suddenly pulled in close to his body. His 2 aides were already standing. Wait, Krelthor said, his translator now conveying uncertainty. Ambassador Vasquez, perhaps we should... But he didn't finish the sentence. He and his aides were moving toward the exit. Cathar was already at the door, his insectoid body moving with surprising speed. The Lumini was already gone, having passed through the door's energy field at maximum velocity. Within 30 seconds, Elena was alone in the negotiation room. She sat in her chair, looking at the 3 empty seats across from her, then at the door where everyone had vanished. The room's environmental systems hummed quietly. A notification blinked on the wall screen indicating the session had been suspended. "What just happened?" Elena said aloud to the empty room. She looked down at her grandmother's box, at the stain that was still spreading slowly across the wood. She felt annoyed, yes, but she had been far more angry in other negotiations. She had once told a warlord exactly what she thought of his policies regarding civilian populations, and she had used significantly stronger language than actually getting annoyed. Her communicator buzzed. It was Cathar, her assistant, the being who had worked with her for 3 years and had never shown fear of anything. "Ambassador," Cathar's voice came through, and there was a tremor in it. "Please confirm you are not mobilizing." "Mobilizing?" Elena said, confused. "Mobilizing what?" "I'm still sitting in the negotiation room. Everyone else ran away." "Yes," Cathar said. "Standard procedure." "Ambassador, with respect, I need to file an official report. Did you just issue a Category 7 escalation statement?" "A what?" Helena stood up, grabbing her damaged box and her data pad. "Cathar, I have no idea what you're talking about." I said I was getting annoyed. Because I am. They've been violating our borders for months and just destroyed a family heirloom. I think annoyance is a pretty reasonable response. There was a long pause on the communicator. "Ambassador," Cathar said slowly, "are you not aware of the galactic protocols regarding human emotional escalation indicators?" "The what?" Another pause, longer this time. "I believe," Cathar said, "we need to have a very important conversation. I will come to your quarters. Please, and I cannot stress this enough, please do not make any other statements about your emotional state until I arrive." The communicator went silent. Elena stood in the empty negotiation room, holding her grandmother's stained box, trying to understand what had just happened. Through the room's large window, she could see the station's main corridor. Beings of various species were moving quickly, many of them looking back over their shoulders or whatever appendages served that purpose for their anatomy. In the distance, she heard an announcement in multiple languages. The words in Earth Standard English were, "Attention. Human Diplomatic Party has issued escalation language. All non-essential personnel should proceed to designated safe areas." This is not a drill. Elena looked down at her box again, then back at the corridor where aliens were evacuating. "I just said I was annoyed," she muttered, but clearly, to the rest of the galaxy, she had said something much more significant. Elena's quarters on Harmony 7 were modest but comfortable. She had decorated them with images from Earth, mostly pictures of forests and oceans. After 3 years stationed on the Council, these images helped her remember what fresh air and real gravity felt like. She sat on her couch, still holding her grandmother's box, when Cathar arrived. Her assistant came through the door with visible caution, as if entering a room that might explode. His multiple eyes scanned the space before he entered fully. "Cathar," Elena said, "please tell me what's happening. The station corridors are half empty, and I'm getting reports that the Zrathi delegation has requested emergency transport off the station." Cathar settled into the chair designed for his species, his legs folding in that precise way insects had. He was silent for a moment, his mandibles clicking in what Elena had learned was his species' version of deep thought. "Ambassador," he began carefully, "how much do you know about the Krell War?" Elena frowned. "The Krell War? That was decades ago. Before my time. It was humanity's first real conflict with another spacefaring species." She searched her memory for details. The Krell Empire attacked human colonies. The war lasted, I think, about a month. Earth won decisively, and the Krell Empire collapsed. It's why humans got a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. 3 weeks, Cathar corrected. The war lasted 3 weeks, but the events leading to it lasted much longer. He paused. "Do you know why the Krell attacked?" "They wanted Earth's territory. They thought humans were weak." "Yes," Cathar said. "But do you know why they thought humans were weak?" Elena shook her head. Cathar's antennae twitched. Because humans had been patient with them. For months before the war, the Krell had been testing human boundaries. Small violations, border incidents, attacks on merchant vessels. Each time the human response was measured, diplomatic. Humans filed complaints, requested meetings, offered compromises. "That's proper procedure," Elena said. "That's how civilized species handle disputes." "Yes," Cathar agreed. But the Krell interpreted human patience as weakness. They believed any species that talked so much and fought so little must be soft. Easy prey. He leaned forward slightly. The Krell commander made a particular mistake. He captured a human diplomatic vessel. The passengers were not military, just civilians and diplomats traveling between colonies. Elena felt a cold sensation in her stomach. She was starting to see where this was going. The human commander at the time was Admiral Sarah Chen. She requested the passengers be returned. The Krell commander refused and issued an ultimatum. Admiral Chen repeated her request 6 times over 3 days. On the 7th day, the Krell commander sent back a message mocking human weakness. He asked how much patience humans truly had. Cathar's voice became very quiet. Admiral Chen's response was 3 sentences long. The first sentence accepted the Krell Empire's choice to proceed with hostilities. The second outlined the formal declaration of war. The third sentence was, "Now I'm actually getting annoyed." Elena's eyes widened. "That's the exact phrase you used today, yes." Cathar pulled out a small holographic projector. Images appeared in the air between them. Star maps, ship movements, battle formations. What the Krell didn't know was that during those months of patience, humans had been studying them. Every ship movement, every communication, every tactical pattern. Human intelligence services had infiltrated Krell networks. Human scientists had analyzed Krell technology and found its weaknesses. Human strategists had wargamed every possible scenario. The holographic display showed Krell space. Then it showed human fleet movements, precise and devastating. Humans hadn't been weak, Cathar continued. They had been preparing. When Admiral Chen said she was actually getting annoyed, the Krell thought it was just more talk. They were wrong. The display showed the war's progression. It was brutal in its efficiency. Humans struck 16 critical Krell facilities simultaneously. Supply lines, communications hubs, military academies. Within 3 days, the Krell military couldn't coordinate. Within a week, their economy was collapsing. Within 2 weeks, their government was in chaos. Elena watched the display with growing understanding and horror. The Krell surrendered after 3 weeks, Cathar said, but they could have surrendered after 3 days and the result would have been the same. Humans had already won. They had won during all those months of patience, mapping out every move, preparing every counter. The actual fighting was just implementation. The holographic display vanished. After the war, the Galactic Council commissioned a study. Xenopsychologists from 40 different species analyzed human behavior patterns. They discovered something that terrified everyone. What? Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Most species have a predictable aggression pattern, Cathar explained. When threatened, they react quickly, fight hard, then tire. Humans are different. Humans are what Earth biologists call persistence predators. On Earth, human ancestors would hunt prey not by being faster or stronger, but by following it. For hours, for days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Cathar's antennae quivered. Humans bring that same pattern to conflict. You don't explode in rage. You don't make rash decisions. You get patient. You get focused. And you get more dangerous the longer a situation continues. What other species see as human weakness, that patience and diplomacy, is actually threat assessment and preparation time. Elena thought about the Zrathi negotiations. 6 months of patience. 6 months of carefully documented violations. 6 months of... "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh yes," Cathar said. The galactic community created the human escalation scale after the Krell War. It has 7 levels. Level 1 is humans being friendly. Level 7 is when humans say they're actually getting annoyed. It's not a threat, Ambassador. It's a warning that human patience has reached its end and planning has reached completion. He pulled up another display. This one showed historical incidents. The Vrax pirate lords tested human merchants for 2 years. Humans were polite, filed reports, requested assistance. The pirates thought humans were afraid. Then a human captain said the phrase. Within 6 hours, human military forces had located every pirate base in the sector. They had been tracking them the entire time. Another image appeared. The Selnari Trade Federation engaged in economic warfare against human colonies. Price manipulation, predatory contracts, resource blocking. For 18 months, human negotiators sought peaceful resolution. Then the chief negotiator said she was getting annoyed. 3 days later, humans revealed they had restructured their entire economic system during those 18 months. The Selnari tactics were now useless. The Federation nearly went bankrupt. More images, more examples. each one showing the same pattern. Humans gave them chances, Cathar said. Lots of chances. But while giving those chances, humans were studying, planning, preparing. By the time humans announce annoyance, they've already won. The opponent just doesn't know it yet. Elena set down her grandmother's box carefully. So when I said I was getting annoyed, the entire galaxy heard that. Humanity has finished being patient with the Zrathi, Cathar said. Every species that knows human history understands what comes next. Not random violence, not emotional rage. Precise, planned, devastating action that has been prepared during months of seeming passivity. Elena's communicator began buzzing repeatedly. Messages were flooding in. She glanced at the screen and saw requests from the Council, from Earth's military command, from news networks across dozens of systems. Cathar, she said slowly, I wasn't planning anything. I was just annoyed about my grandmother's box. Her assistant looked at her with all 6 of his eyes. Ambassador, he said gently, do you really think Earth's government hasn't been planning? Do you think Earth's military hasn't been watching the Zrathi violations for 6 months? The only reason you weren't aware of those plans is because you were busy keeping the Zrathi talking, giving Earth time to prepare. Elena's hands felt cold. What have I done? Your job, Cathar said quietly. You kept them distracted while your species got ready. Now, whether you intended to or not, you've told the galaxy that preparation time is over. Outside her window, Elena could see ships beginning to leave the station. The evacuation was expanding. At Galactic University on the neutral world of Axios Prime, Professor Thrennick was teaching his usual class on xenopsychology when his assistant interrupted. The assistant, a young Lumini named Bright Ascending, was shimmering with agitation. Professor, you need to see this, Bright Ascending said, projecting a holographic news feed into the classroom. Thrennick, a being whose species resembled Earth's octopi but with crystalline skin, focused several of his eyes on the projection. The news headline was in multiple languages, but the Earth Standard version read, Human Ambassador issues Category 7 escalation statement. His students, representing 15 different species, began chattering nervously. A Zrathi student in the back stood and left the room immediately. No one blamed her. Class, Thrennick said, his translator converting his species' color-based language into audible speech. I believe we should postpone today's planned lecture. Instead, I will explain what you are about to witness over the coming days and weeks. Pay attention. This is the most important lesson you will learn this semester. He pulled up a chart showing different species' aggression patterns. The display showed how various species responded to threats over time. Most of the curves showed sharp initial spikes that gradually declined. When most species are threatened, they react quickly, Thrennick explained. The Karathi battle rage lasts approximately 4 hours before exhaustion sets in. The Felnox fury burns bright but fades within days. Even my own people's defensive responses peak quickly, then subside. This is normal. This is natural. This is how evolution shaped most intelligent species. He pulled up another curve. This one was different. It started low and gradually increased, never seeming to peak. This is human aggression over time. Notice the pattern. It rises slowly but consistently. More importantly, notice that we have no data showing where it peaks, because in recorded history, human opponents have always surrendered before the peak was reached. A student, a small furred being from the Whisper colonies, raised a paw. Professor, why do humans respond so differently? Excellent question, Thrennick said. He projected images of Earth, showing its various environments and creatures. Humans evolved as persistence predators on a high-gravity world with extreme environmental variation. Their hunting strategy for thousands of generations was not to be fastest or strongest, but to be most patient. They would track prey for days, following at a steady pace, never giving up, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. He zoomed in on images of early humans hunting. Humans developed an unusual trait for a predator species. They can consciously override their immediate emotional responses. When threatened, most species' first instinct is fight or flight. Humans have a third option, assess. They can feel fear or anger, but choose not to act on it immediately. Instead, they study the threat. They plan. They prepare. The classroom was completely silent now. Even the usually restless students were focused. This ability served humans well on their homeworld, but it becomes truly dangerous when applied to warfare and conflict. When a human says they are being patient, They are not being passive. They are gathering data. Every interaction is a test. Every conversation reveals information. By the time humans announce they are actually annoyed, they have completed their assessment. They know their opponent's strengths, weaknesses, tactics, and vulnerabilities. Threnik pulled up footage from the Krell War. His students watched as human forces moved with precise coordination, striking targets that somehow paralyzed an entire empire. The Krell made a fatal error in judgment. They believed human patience was fear. They were wrong. Human patience is preparation time. Let me show you something fascinating. He displayed a comparison chart showing human diplomatic communications over time versus human military readiness. During the 6 months before the Krell War, human diplomatic messages increased in frequency and detail. The Krell thought humans were desperately trying to avoid conflict. But look at this second timeline. During those same 6 months, human military construction increased 400%. Human intelligence gathering operations in Krell space increased 600%. Human war game simulations ran continuously. The truth became clear in the data. While human diplomats talked, human forces prepared. Humans were not avoiding war, Threnik said. They were deciding whether war was necessary and, if so, how to win it most efficiently. By the time Admiral Chen said she was actually getting annoyed, humans had already built the fleets, trained the soldiers, mapped the targets, and run the simulations. The Krell had mistaken preparation time for weakness. Another student spoke up, this one is Rathi. But Professor, my people have been negotiating with humans for months. Does this mean? Yes, Threnik said gently. I'm sorry. If a human ambassador has issued escalation language, it means your people's actions have been deemed unacceptable, and human patience has concluded. More importantly, it means preparations are complete. His communicator chimed. He glanced at it and saw messages from colleagues across the galaxy. The galactic stock markets were crashing. Insurance companies were refusing to cover Zrathi assets. 3 neighboring species had just offered Earth full intelligence cooperation. The young Zrathi student's skin color had shifted to the pale gray of fear. What will happen to us? Threnik considered the question carefully. He believed in honesty with his students. If your government is wise, they will surrender immediately and offer full reparations. If they are foolish, they will try to fight. He paused. The Krell tried to fight. Their empire no longer exists. But I want you to understand something important. Humans are not monsters. They do not desire violence. Every conflict involving humans has started when another species mistook human patience for weakness. He pulled up more data, showing post-war situations. Look at the Krell worlds now. They are self-governing again. Their economy is recovered. Humans helped rebuild what the war damaged. The same with the Vrax territories after the Pirate Wars. The same with every conflict. Humans do not want conquest. They want the problem to stop. Threnik changed the display to show human diplomatic history. Humans give chances, many chances. They prefer peace, but once they decide peace is impossible with a particular opponent, they do not half commit. They finish the problem completely, then they help rebuild. This is the pattern. This is what we have observed for 2 centuries. His communicator was now buzzing constantly. News feeds were showing scenes from across the galaxy. Zrathi military units were mobilizing. Human fleet movements were being reported. The Galactic Council was calling an emergency session. Class dismissed, Threnik said. Not because the lesson is over, but because you are about to witness it firsthand. Watch what happens over the next few days. Watch how humans move. Watch how they communicate. Most importantly, watch how precise their actions are. Every move will have been planned during those 6 months of negotiations. The students filed out quietly. The Zrathi student lingered. Professor, she said, should I go home? Threnik considered this. Is your family military or civilian? Civilian. My parents run a mining operation. Then you are safer here, Threnik said honestly. Humans are precise. They target military capability, not civilians. Your family is not in danger. Your government's military, however, and he trailed off. The student nodded and left. Threnik turned back to his displays, watching the news feeds multiply. His colleague from the military history department appeared via hologram. Threnik, are you watching this? I am. How long do you think the Zrathi have? Threnik pulled up his models, the ones based on 2 centuries of human conflict patterns. He ran the calculations. If they surrender immediately, they survive intact. If they try to fight? He checked the numbers again. 2 weeks. Perhaps 3 if they're very good at hiding. And if they do something stupid like attack a human civilian target? Thrennick's skin color shifted to the dark blue of deep concern. Then may the universe have mercy on them, because humans will have none. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. Military analysts were pulling up old human conflict data. Insurance brokers were canceling policies. News networks were running historical documentaries about the Krell War. And everyone who knew human history was taking the same actions, getting out of the way and hoping the Zrathi would be smart enough to surrender quickly. Because when humans said they were actually getting annoyed, the intelligent response was not to fight. It was to apologize, fix the problem, and hope for mercy. The Zrathi were about to learn this lesson the hard way. The Zrathi High Command chamber was carved from solid stone deep beneath their homeworld's surface. 17 military leaders sat around a circular table, their gray skin showing stress patterns of dark ridges and pale valleys. Supreme Commander Zrothkal stood at the center, his forearms gesturing with agitation. "This is unacceptable," he growled. "One human says she is annoyed, and the entire galaxy treats it like a declaration of war. We are the Zrathi. We have conquered 40 star systems. We will not be intimidated by primates who only left their homeworld 2 centuries ago." Around the table, reactions were mixed. Half the commanders showed agreement, their skin patterns matching Zrothkal's aggressive posture. The other half showed caution, their patterns muted and controlled. Defense Coordinator Krellnoth, who had been the ambassador meeting with Elena, spoke carefully. "Supreme Commander, I was there. I saw her expression. The humans have been patient, yes, but that patience was weakness," Zrothkal interrupted. "Nothing more. They file complaints and hold meetings because they fear real conflict. We have tested them for months and they have done nothing but talk." "That is what concerns me," Krellnoth said. 6 months of perfect documentation. 6 months of measured responses. 6 months of humans watching everything we did. "Supreme Commander, I recommend immediate diplomatic overtures. The historical precedent, the Krell were weak," another commander said. "Their empire was already rotting from within. The humans simply took advantage." Krellnoth's forearms spread in a gesture of frustration. "The Krell had twice our military capacity. They fell in 3 weeks. Then they were incompetent," Zrothkal said firmly. "We are not. I say we show these humans that patience is not a virtue when dealing with the Zrathi. We strike first, strike hard, and show the galaxy that human threats are empty." The vote was split. 9 commanders supported immediate military action. 8 urged diplomatic solutions. In Zrathi culture, the Supreme Commander's preference broke ties. "We strike," Zrothkal declared. "Target the human agricultural colony at Kepler 442c. Minimal military presence, maximum symbolic value. We show them that their patience has gained them nothing but a weaker position." Krellnoth left the chamber feeling sick. He immediately sent an encrypted message to his family, telling them to leave the homeworld. He suspected they would not be the only refugees soon. The Zrathi attack fleet consisted of 12 warships, more than enough to overwhelm a farming colony. They jumped into the Kepler 442 system with weapons armed and intentions clear. The colony's automated defense grid responded, but it was designed to handle pirates and asteroids, not a military assault. The attack lasted 4 hours. The Zrathi disabled the defense grid, destroyed the colony's communications array, and bombarded 3 farming settlements. 217 humans died. Most were families. Some were children. When news of the attack reached Earth, the response was not what the Zrathi expected. There was no immediate military mobilization, no threats, no ultimatums. Instead, there was silence. For 6 hours, Earth's government said nothing. Galactic news networks filled the void with speculation. Analysts debated whether humans would actually retaliate or if this proved the Zrathi right about human weakness. Then Admiral James Chen appeared on every major network simultaneously. He was a small man by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall with gray hair and a face marked by smile lines. He looked like someone's grandfather. He was smiling now, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Good afternoon," Admiral Chen said pleasantly. "I want to address the recent actions by the Zrathi Collective. Approximately 4 hours ago, Zrathi military forces attacked the civilian colony at Kepler 442c. 217 people were killed. 38 were children under the age of 12. His smile never wavered. In response to this action, the Terran Defense Force is now implementing pre-authorized contingency plans. We want to assure all spacefaring species that this operation will be conducted with precision and care. Civilian populations in Zarathi space are not targets and will not be harmed. However, the Zarathi military capacity to threaten human lives must be and will be eliminated. The smile grew slightly wider. We anticipate this will take approximately 2 weeks. We encourage all civilian vessels to avoid Zarathi military installations during this time. Thank you, and have a pleasant day. The transmission ended. At Galactic University, Professor Threnik watched the recording 3 times, each time focusing on different aspects. His students had gathered around him, sensing his expertise was needed. Professor, one asked nervously, why is he smiling? Threnik's skin turned the dark blue of fear. Because he is not angry. Anger is emotional, chaotic, unpredictable. That human is not angry. He is implementing a plan. Watch his body language, relaxed, confident, happy even. How can he be happy? Another student asked. Humans just died. He is not happy about the deaths, Threnik explained. He is confident in the plan that will respond to those deaths. Do you see the difference? An angry commander makes mistakes. A smiling commander already knows the outcome. Elena Vasquez watched Admiral Chen's statement from her quarters on Harmony 7. Cathar sat beside her, his insectoid body very still. I know him, Elena said quietly. Admiral Chen. We served together years ago in a different capacity. He is a kind man. He volunteers at schools. He helps his neighbors with their gardens. I do not doubt his kindness, Cathar said. But humans have a saying, do they not? Do not mistake kindness for weakness. I believe that applies here. Elena's communicator showed the galactic response. The Zarathi attack had changed everything. Species that had been neutral were now offering Earth full support. The Galactic Council was preparing sanctions against the Zarathi. Most significantly, 3 species that shared borders with Zarathi space were suddenly providing Earth with detailed intelligence about Zarathi military positions. They're all helping us, Elena said, reading through the offers. Of course, Cathar replied. The Zarathi proved every fear about them correct. They attacked civilians. They ignored the warning. And now every species wants to ensure Earth knows they are not aligned with the Zarathi. On Earth, the actual mobilization was underway, but it was not the scrambling, chaotic rush of an unprepared military. Instead, it was the smooth implementation of plans that had clearly been prepared for months. Fleet movements were precise. Every ship seemed to know exactly where to go. Communications were minimal because everyone already knew their assignments. Supply lines activated without confusion. It was the movement of a military that had rehearsed this exact scenario, because they had. For 6 months, while Elena negotiated and documented Zarathi violations, Earth's military had been planning. Every Zarathi ship position had been noted. Every supply route had been mapped. Every communication frequency had been monitored. Every tactical pattern had been analyzed. The Zarathi had been studied like specimens under a microscope. Admiral Chen sat in his command center, reviewing the final preparations. His staff moved around him with quiet efficiency. On the main display, Zarathi space was shown in perfect detail. Every military installation marked, every ship tracked. Admiral, his second-in-command said, all fleets report ready. Thank you, Commander, Chen said, still smiling. Please remind all units that civilian safety is paramount. We are not at war with the Zarathi people. We are eliminating the military capacity that chose to attack our civilians. Yes, sir. And if they surrender? Then we accept immediately and proceed to Phase 2. Rebuilding assistance. Chen pulled up a secondary set of plans, these ones showing post-conflict reconstruction projects. We have engineering corps ready to help repair any damage to civilian infrastructure. Medical teams ready to provide assistance. Economic advisors ready to help stabilize their markets. The commander looked at the reconstruction plans with some surprise. Sir, you planned the rebuilding before the war even started? Chen's smile became slightly sad. Commander, we always plan the rebuilding first. The war is just the unfortunate step required to get there. We do not want to harm the Zarathi. We want them to stop harming us. Once they stop, we help them recover. That has always been our way. In Zarathi space, Supreme Commander Zrothkal was receiving reports of human fleet movements. The scope of what he was seeing was impossible. Human ships were appearing in dozens of locations simultaneously. moving with coordination that suggested months of planning. "How did they hide this from us?" he demanded. "They did not hide it, Supreme Commander," an intelligence officer reported. "They built it openly. We saw the construction. We simply assumed it was normal military readiness, not specific preparation for war with us." Zrothkal stared at the display showing human fleet positions. They had not just prepared for war. They had prepared for war specifically against the Zrathi, incorporating every tactical observation from 6 months of border conflicts. "We have made an error," he said quietly. The war lasted 11 days. On the first day, human forces struck 43 Zrathi military installations simultaneously. Not randomly, not opportunistically, but with surgical precision. Every target had been selected to maximize military impact while minimizing civilian risk. Ammunition depots were destroyed when personnel were at minimum levels. Command centers were hit with communication-disrupting weapons rather than explosives. Shipyards building warships were disabled, but shipyards building civilian vessels were untouched. The Zrathi military tried to respond, but they quickly discovered a disturbing truth. Humans knew where every Zrathi ship was. More than that, humans seemed to know where every Zrathi ship would be. Ambushes failed because humans anticipated them. Retreats were cut off because humans had already positioned forces along escape routes. It was as if the Zrathi were playing a game where the humans had already seen the final score, because they essentially had. 6 months of careful observation had given Earth's military complete intelligence. Every Zrathi tactical doctrine had been studied. Every commander's preferences had been noted. The Zrathi military was fighting an opponent that knew them better than they knew themselves. On the third day, the Zrathi High Command requested a ceasefire to negotiate terms. Admiral Chen, still smiling that grandfatherly smile, accepted immediately. The shooting stopped within hours. The negotiations took place aboard a neutral station. Admiral Chen led the human delegation personally. Supreme Commander Zrothkal, looking significantly less confident than he had 11 days earlier, led the Zrathi. "You planned all of this," Zrothkal said, his translator giving his words a tone of defeated realization. "The 6 months of negotiations, the patience, the documentation, all of it was preparation time." "Yes," Admiral Chen said simply. "We hoped it would not be necessary. We genuinely preferred peaceful resolution, but we prepared for the possibility that your government would choose violence." "Why give us so many chances?" Zrothkal asked. "You could have struck months ago when we first violated your borders." "Why wait?" Chen was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. "Because we do not want to be at war," he said finally. "War is expensive. People die. Resources are destroyed. Families suffer. We avoid it if we possibly can. Those 6 months were not just preparation time for us. They were opportunity time for you. Every day you could have chosen differently. Every day you could have stopped the border violations, respected our territory, engaged in honest negotiation. But you were preparing the entire time," Zrothkal said. "That seems contradictory." "No," Chen said gently. "It is practical. We hope for the best and prepare for the worst. That is not contradiction. That is wisdom." Ambassador Elena Vasquez, who was also present at the negotiations, found herself understanding something fundamental about her own species. Humans were not naturally aggressive, but they were naturally thorough. The same patience that made them good diplomats made them dangerous opponents. Because patience meant time and time meant preparation, the peace terms were surprisingly generous. The Zrathi military would be reduced but not eliminated. War reparations would be paid but structured so as not to destroy the Zrathi economy. Most significantly, Earth offered immediate humanitarian assistance to repair damage done during the 11-day war. Zrothkal looked at the terms with suspicion. "Why would you help us rebuild?" "We attacked you." "Because we are not fighting the Zrathi people," Chen explained. "We were fighting a military and government that chose to attack our civilians. The Zrathi citizens did not make that choice. They should not suffer for their leaders' decisions more than necessary." Within weeks, human engineering teams were working alongside Zrathi civilians to repair damaged facilities. Human medical personnel treated Zrathi wounded with the same care as human wounded. Human economic advisors helped restructure Zrathi trade to be sustainable without military expansion. The galaxy watched in fascination. This was the pattern. This was what humans did. They gave chances, many chances. When those chances ran out, they acted with devastating precision. And then, once the threat was neutralized, they helped rebuild. 6 months after the war ended, the Galactic Council held a special session. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, addressing representatives from hundreds of worlds. "I want to explain something about my species," Elena began, "something that I only fully understood recently, despite being human myself. We are not quick to anger. We are not eager for conflict. But please do not mistake our patience for weakness or our diplomacy for fear." She pulled up displays showing human evolutionary history, the same information Professor Threnik had shown his students. We evolved as persistence predators. Our ancestors survived not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the most patient and thorough. When we hunt, we study. When we plan, we are detailed. When we make decisions, we consider long-term consequences. The council chamber was completely silent. Every representative was paying attention. When we negotiate, we are genuinely seeking peaceful resolution, but we are also learning, observing, understanding. If you negotiate with humans in good faith, you will find us reasonable and fair. If you negotiate with humans in bad faith, believing our patience is weakness, you will eventually discover the truth. Elena thought about her grandmother's box, sitting on her desk, still stained but now carefully repaired. That box had survived wars and peace, representing generations of diplomats who preferred talk to violence. But it also represented something else: the human ability to value things over time, to remember, to prepare. That phrase that caused all this, Elena continued, the phrase about being actually annoyed, it is not a threat. It is not bravado. It is a simple statement of fact. Humans give many chances because we understand that conflicts can be resolved peacefully. But when we say we are actually annoyed, we are communicating that those chances have been exhausted and alternatives have been prepared. She looked directly at the Zrathi delegation, where Krelnoth now sat as Supreme Commander. Zrothkal had retired after the war, his career ended by his catastrophic miscalculation. "We do not want other species to fear us," Elena said. "We want them to understand us. We are patient, but our patience has limits. We are kind, but our kindness should not be mistaken for inability to act. We prefer peace, but we prepare for war. This is not contradiction. This is how we survived on our homeworld, and it is how we interact with the galaxy." The council session ended with new protocols being established. The human escalation scale was officially recognized and taught in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. Species learned to recognize the signs, increasing human documentation, unusually specific questions during negotiations. Human military readiness increases during diplomatic talks. These were not signs of impending aggression. They were signs that humans were preparing alternatives while hoping those alternatives would not be needed. 5 years after what became known as the Zrathi incident, Professor Threnik was teaching a new group of students. A young alien, recently arrived from a species that had only recently achieved space travel, raised a tentacle. "Professor, I do not understand. If humans are so dangerous, why does everyone want to trade with them? Why do we have diplomatic missions to Earth? Why are they so popular?" Threnik's skin color shifted to warm yellow, the color of satisfaction with a good question. "Because, young one, humans are only dangerous to those who threaten them or their allies. If you approach humans honestly, if you respect their boundaries, if you negotiate in good faith, you will find them to be among the most reliable and generous species in the galaxy. Humans are excellent friends and terrible enemies. The choice of which you encounter is entirely up to you." He pulled up statistics showing human trade relationships, diplomatic successes, and cultural exchanges. Humans were involved in more peaceful initiatives than any other species. They shared technology freely. They provided humanitarian aid without expecting military alliances in return. They were good neighbors. "Humans teach us an important lesson," Threnik continued. "Patience is not the same as passivity. Kindness is not the same as weakness. The capacity for violence is not the same as the desire for it. Humans have the capacity, but they use it only when necessary. This makes them trustworthy. You know exactly where you stand with humans because they communicate clearly." "Even the phrase about being annoyed?" the student asked. "Especially that phrase," Threnik said. "When a human says they are actually getting annoyed, they are giving you one final warning. They are communicating clearly that change must happen. Most species appreciate this clarity. It means humans do not attack without warning. They tell you directly and honestly that their patience is ending. On Earth, Admiral Chen was retiring. He spent his final day in command reviewing reports from the reconstruction efforts in Zarathi space. The repairs were ahead of schedule. Economic indicators were positive. Relations between humans and Zarathi were now better than they had been before the war. He smiled, that same grandfatherly smile that had terrified half the galaxy. But his staff, who knew him well, understood that the smile was genuine. He was not happy about the war. He was happy about the peace that followed. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.